Can you see the moon, dear user? That's the moon up there, and this would be the lunar landscape of Cornerstone. I'm really enjoying it out here, and one of the reasons is, apart from the sense of freedom and exploring this vast and prohibitive terrain. Actually, it's not even like that. It looks like, you know, you're out in the middle of the Navajo desert, but there's actually just houses across the street abounding with the inner life of human goodness. But one of the reasons I love this place is because, well, I mean, there's two kinds of freedom. There's obviously inner freedom and outer freedom, but you know, it's hard to say which is more important, right? Because inner freedom is a state of mind that should always be accessible, right? So I broke up with my wife, and I don't know why it is the case. I was talking to my buddy Steve, and he has been feeling a bit of the same because he just had a crazy breakup with his girlfriend and the woman of his dreams. And we both agree with the basic precept that, you know, guys ask, who's the woman of my dreams? Who's the one for me? There's a very basic, very simple rule that I have established, dear listeners. It's just gorgeous. Everything is beautiful though, isn't it beautiful? Like, it's just really beautiful. You know, if you stop taking it for granted, dear user, you'd realize how just amazing it is just to be alive. You know, notwithstanding things like Gary Vaynerchuk and people like him who say that your chances of being born are infinitesimally small, and your chances of being born as a human are 1 in 400 trillion or something, 1 in 400 trillion. I mean, it's basically just saying that, heck, the chance of this universe existing is unbelievable. Imam Ali, peace be upon him, of all people, said that basically something like this. He said, glory be to the one that is God the most exalted, who created a universe of opposites, right? So my dad's an atomic physicist, and he says that everything in the universe has an opposite, right? Everything has an opposite, you know, to the extent that emotions have opposites, right? So everything has an opposite. Everything is unique, believe it or not. Every grain of sand, every blade of glass, every blade of grass, every snowflake, and at the same time, everything is in motion. You know, it's a wonderful universe. You know, you're 99.8% space, and me too. And the reason is because the atom, okay, is a nucleus surrounded by an electron. The electron, the distance of the electron to the nucleus is the same proportionally as the Earth to the sun, or some crazy nonsense like that. So, you know, it's all mostly space, or it's mostly energy. I mean, if you just forget yourself, that really should be, I don't understand why no one's come up with the tagline, forget yourself. Forget yourself. If you can just forget yourself, then, you know, there's no problem. You'll see that all of this is just beautiful and perfect and amazing, and you're not hungry and you're not tired, and, you know, for the most part. But then you'll start saying, well, what about people who are tired and hungry and suffering? Well, my dear one, that's fodder for another discussion on another grim day, I say. So yeah, sense of freedom. So Steve and myself, you know, Steve is my buddy who's on his way to, seriously, he's on his way to becoming a leader in a very competitive industry. He's one of the most amazing, I mean, I'd have to say he's the most amazing person I know the closest, if that makes any sense. Hey, listen, the Liberal Party of Canada follows me on Twitter, but that don't mean squat. Gary Vaynerchuk, hello Gary, hello. Gary Vaynerchuk follows me on Twitter too. Andrew WK follows me on Twitter. I don't know why I keep rambling off this string of pseudo celebrities and shady business deal makers. Oh God, it's like kind of hard. It's like, you know, muddy and all this kind of stuff. Now, my own personal law of attraction tells me that there's a path, right? There's always a path. There's only been two, it's very funny now that I think of it. There's only been 2 times in my whole life that I went down a trail or some nonsense like that and it turned into something like dangerous or foreboding. The first time was with my first wife, Vara, who was an arranged marriage from Pakistan and basically my cousin, if the truth be known. We never consummated our marriage. We lived together for a number of months, 6-7 months in Vancouver, okay, and we never consummated our marriage, if that makes any sense to you. And so by definition, you know, it was more or less void, and we annulled it, annulment, right? So 6-7 months, by the way, that's the average relationship I have and the average job length I have in this life. What a beautiful life it is. In any case, so sense of freedom. So Steve is on his way to becoming credit is kind of tied into it because it's automotive sales, right? And so, you know, he's in the same business as me, I dare say, except that he did like 20 grand of business just today, for example, something like that. You know, he's got a team of salespeople, he's got tech people, he's acquiring other businesses or partnering with them and doing amazing things. He's basically like a pipe fitter, like he used to work in oil and gas, right? So high powered guy, okay? He makes 100 phone calls a day, never has read a sales book, natural business maker, natural salesperson, very interesting dude. So he and I are both in the grips of a relationship saga. So I left my wife, or she kicked me out, or something. Who knows? Who cares, right? It doesn't matter, right? I mean, the question I'm grappling with is whether after 15 years, you know, whether it really is time to just move on, right? It's a long story and I don't want to get into it. What I was talking about was sense of freedom, right? Because it's a known thing. So Steve has been feeling a sense of freedom, although he deeply misses his girlfriend and all this kind of stuff. And I've been feeling a sense of freedom too, right? This great, beautiful landscape. And well, it's not like I'm walking around exploring the whole time. I'm actually working the whole time. You know, my business is taking off. I'm getting clients and more clients and more projects and more interesting discussions. Just today I was on the phone with some dude in the Netherlands. Oh my God, this guy's like totally next level. This guy is like Steve. And this guy wants me to potentially do some copywriting for his business, right? You know, what a perfect shot, eh? The moon and, you know, the detritus of a post-industrial apocalypse. So yeah, I mean, this is obviously the place to sit down and finish this little missive off. There we go. Can I get the, yeah, I want to get the moon, and I want to get some of this water effect. But anyway, screw the moon. Well, no, the moon's pretty cool. So I don't know. What should we do here, dear user? This doesn't look right. And just because I'm always so worried about your well-being, my dearest viewer, I'll head on over here and see if I have a better shot to line up that will include aforesaid moon and the lake effect. Although it's far from a lake, right? So I guess it's just the same as with everything else. If you can't succeed one way, then try something else, right? Anyway, this is crap. I can't. There's like, it's next to impossible, right? Because now if I start shouting, right, you might not even hear what I'm saying. Anyway, so Steve, business builder, dude in the Netherlands, Dennis, found me on Upwork. Go put a profile up on Upwork and stop complaining about life being hard. It's not hard. It's not hard. Everyone who says life is hard doesn't know what they're talking about. Life is life. That's what it is. So now, sense of freedom, right? So on the one hand, I was so depressed over this last 2 or 3 weeks that I've been staying here that I literally had 2 or 3 days where I just couldn't get out of bed. You know, I've slept like 12 and 14 hours, 12 hours, and then I'll get up, you know, and like do something nominal like pray or something, and then go back to sleep, right, for, you know, another couple of hours. So I'm off the highway. See, the moon seems important, right? You don't usually see the moon out like that. That's why it seems important to try and capture that for you, my dear user. Alright, so now, Dennis in Netherlands, really cool guy, wants me to write some content, a lot of content. You know, I want to squeeze $1,000 a month out of this dude, and I think it's very doable. Like, they're an amazing company, Inco Business Systems, and they have this subsidiary called Shelf Company. And basically what they do is they help business people and companies and entrepreneurs expand into new markets, and they'll take care of all the legal, financial, accounting, and so forth, the paperwork, the legal stuff. So let's say you want to expand into Kuwait. So they have an agent in Kuwait, you know, who's familiar with all the legalese and all the kind of stuff. So it's kind of like turnkey. It's kind of like turnkey documentation. Let's just put it at the simplest level. Turnkey legal, corporate, and business and financial documentation, so that you can set up shop in pretty much any of a number of markets. Now, that Shelf Company that he wants me to write the content for, and he obviously wants it done in a way that's appealing to the young millennial entrepreneur kind of stuff. I mean, this guy, by the way, he's an established business guy. We were on a Skype call, and his office just blew my mind. It like looked like the inside of an auditorium or something, with Inco Business written on the back. I mean, the guy is definitely, he oozes success, and he totally is on point. He's not one of these guys who wants you to write something up for a fake website and he's spamming people in some nonsense like that. It's a real business with real offices and agents and partners around the world, and you know, they've incorporated 600 clients, right? And they've got a database of 10, 12,000 you know, contacts. And you know, frankly, he hinted to me, it was a pretty broad hint. He was like, you know, I had a marketing person, but I no longer have a marketing person, ... And my whole thing is always the same. Bro, let's just start off step at a time. Send me what you want me to write up. I'll write it up. Let's see if it's good. If it's good, you hire me on Upwork and we start munging that out, and then we come to some kind of agreement around that content, right? So it's so easy to get caught up in, like, you know, you meet people and like suddenly they're your best friend. I mean, the same happened with Steve, actually. You know, he's the CEO of Credit Bros, you know, so they sell automotive leads. Like, Steve is a mad genius. He's like, he seems like a redneck. He literally goes, there's people standing on their there's people standing on their porch, but I don't want to point the camera at them because that's kind of intrusive. So Steve goes to Facebook himself. He's like he's a pipe fitter. He looks like basically a redneck. Basically, I'm sorry. I call him that sometimes, or maybe I haven't, but that's basically what it is. I might have let it slip a couple of times. Redneck. He's a redneck. He's basically a hillbilly. He's a pipe fitter, but he's one of the smartest dudes I've ever met, and he's a classic success story. I mean, he's a classic case study in success, in as much as, you know, he has all these successful attributes, and the question is, where did he get them from? So now, yeah, so Steve basically generates his leads himself on Facebook and sells them to automotive dealerships, and he's got this amazing software interface where leads come in, they get automated texts and voicemails and all kinds of stuff like that. So In any case, leads are what it's all about, right? So as a digital marketer, my job, more or less at the end of the day, is to help you grow your brand digitally, website or Google Ads or social media or search engine optimization, which is helping you show up in Google. A lot of that's technical stuff. The branding stuff sounds very fancy, but really at the end of the day, you don't really need a good logo, a good website, good business plan, good nothing. You need a good product or service that solves people's problems, right? And it has to be at the right price. And then you need a way to connect with those people. So if you can connect with those people and you have the right message, obviously, Marshall McLuhan, you have the right message on the right medium and all this kind of rubbish, then you've got a shot. You've got a shot at the big leagues, I dare say. But all of that, what I just described, is a lot of work. It's years of work. And, it is possible, I'll tell you. I'm an internet marketer. I still believe the dream. It is possible to buy a course and 6 months later be making 10 grand a month. It's possible to be making 10 grand a month within a month. It's possible to be making 30 grand in a month within a month from start, right? You'll be like, how is it possible? Tell me, what should I do? What you should do is stop being silly and stop wasting your time and get over yourself. These are the only 3 things you need to do. Now, in as much as any kind of point of this video, I guess there is none. I guess it would have to be called the call of the wild. And then something about freedom. So, freedom. On the one hand, I love my wife dearly. We're together for 15 years. It's like I told Steve, and he agrees with me, and it is the case. Guys, if there are any guys out there and you want to know, is this the right woman for me? Here's how you know. Is this the right woman for me? It's not about money. It's not about social prowess. It's not about looks. It's not about, her background or anything, her parents or her family, nothing. Here's all it is. And this is why I'll always love my ex-wife forever and ever. 15 years and all this kind of stuff. So now, the woman for you, dear guys, is the woman who puts up with your crap. She's the one who answers your phone, answers your calls, gets back to you. She's the one who you've mistreated the most. She's the one who's taught you how to behave like a human being as opposed to an animal. I remember when I started dating my wife 15 years ago, and she shows up in this $40,000 Jeep dressed to the nines, or whatever that expression is, and she's got like rich and practically famous guys who want to take her out on dates and all this kind of stuff. She's a firecracker from Colombia, I dare say, and I love her very much, and that's what that is. And she put up with, listen guys, you know this, the wrong girl or an average girl, she won't put up with any of your crap. She won't put up with the wrong pickup line, the wrong scent of perfume, the wrong shade of red on your lapel, or whatever the crap that is. Let alone you dumping on her and mistreating her, and just her putting up with your crap and your useless failings over so many years, right? So that's the average guy. Hey, there's people like Elon Musk and George Clooney, sure. But I'm sure they would agree as well with these remarks. So the woman who puts up with your crap, she's the one for you. That's all that is. Freedom. So on the one hand, I love my wife, and I was so depressed that I was so depressed that I'd never been that depressed in my life. And I've had issues with bipolar syndrome exacerbated by marijuana usage. I might as well just put that out there. So over several years I was manic depressive, or what have you. I personally think everyone is slightly depressed, and if you push anyone's buttons they go nuts, but I exhibited some severe signs, and just had some very intense experiences therefore. So so freedom. So freedom is good, obviously. And then, you know, you love your partner, but unfortunately women have a tendency to want to control guys. And this is not being a misogynist or sexist or something like that. This is actually the truth. It's documented, right? So if you need an excavator, then you know who to call. On the other hand, if you read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, you'll understand that men want to be admired as men, right? And this is a whole other video. This is tomes and tomes and tomes. I mean, I just wanted to say that God is great, right? And I've been feeling great, and it's Ramadan, and I've been fasting and running and working and closing deals, and I'm feeling awesome, right? And life is great. And there's actually no point to this video whatsoever, and it's time for me to go break my fast. So thank you, and do something useful and stop whining and all this stuff. All right, comments appreciated. Please like and subscribe. Just do something useful, like something like non-ordinary. It's like, oh, I'm so bored, and I mean, basically, okay, I'm so sorry, but here's what it is. I read about this when I was like 14. Okay, so there's this thing called the mass consciousness, right? Mass consciousness is what is pumping you full of fear and negativity and deflating you and bringing you down and all this kind of stuff, right? Mass consciousness. Mass consciousness is basically the mass mindset, you know, celebrity and spectacle and, you know, scarcity and all this kind of stuff. Basically, you need to unplug from that, and it's an ongoing endeavor. That's why I go out running. That's why I immerse myself in work. Actually, more or less, the more I think about it, it would seem that the whole purpose and the only thing that you should be doing is trying to neutralize the detrimental effects of societal conditioning. That's all it is. So the first thing is, you don't just hang out and talk to anyone. You don't just say yes to anyone. You don't just, you know, sell yourself over to anyone, right? You choose your friends carefully. I mean, unfortunately, you don't trust anyone, right? I mean, your wife and loved ones can even be a hindrance on your spiritual path. What does it mean? You should become a Zen monk? Basically, yeah, because it's not that hard. It doesn't mean you should abandon the world, but just that you should abandon attachments, right? Abandon attachments meaning we all live in the same world, but we all experience a different reality, right? So I'm walking around here making YouTube videos and jogging and whatnot. I'm not worried about people. I'm kind of avoiding people right now. I know enough people online and on the phone and all this kind of stuff. I'm not, actually, the truth is I'm not interested in regular people. Like, I love them and I'll help them out. And if I bump into them, I'll say hello. But regular people, because they are essentially submissive and submerged in the mass mindset, they have nothing useful to offer, nothing useful to say. They don't think anything useful. They don't do anything useful. Unfortunately, they are not useful. They are not useful. Holy Imam, peace be upon him, said that all of our holy Imams, rather, or when I say they said, it means it's an interesting thing. We've got 12 Imams, peace be upon them all. The successor of Prophet Muhammad was Imam Ali, peace be upon him. And our 12th Imam is, you know, he's the awaited Messiah, according to Muslims, and he's going to reappear at some future time, which is not a known certainty to people, in as much as, you know, that's what we believe. Anyway, nice thing is this, that you can take any theme, right? You know, marriage, lying, clothes, money, charity, and there's many, you know, let me just put it this way, there's hundreds and thousands, obviously, of sayings of our 12 Imams that have been recorded. At least 100,000 to 300,000 have been recorded in some shape or form. And, you know, they not only have thematic similarities, but sometimes exact statements are repeated by different imams who are separated by generations, right? So this is just another indication to us Shias of the veracity of our holy imams. In any case, I don't even know what I was going to quote, right? So we're talking about, obviously, yes, average person. So Imam Ali said the same thing, and I believe our 11th or 6th or 5th Imam as well. You know, 2 or 3 of our Imams said the exact same thing. Oh yes, our 6th Imam said this as well. People are of 3 kinds. You know, and there's all kinds of categorizations of deeds and people and things in general. You know, it's like Ron said, hey Ron, I'll get back to you one of these days. Ron said that we're basically either pattern forming monkeys or pattern recognizing monkeys, but pattern, that's key to the whole thing. You know, I asked the last video, does any of this look like it's random? You know, you'll say as an atheist, well, we seek to impose patterns on a chaotic universe. What nonsense. Okay, so this is the saying of our imams, peace be upon them all. They said basically that people are of 3 kinds. There's a scholar who would be the man of knowledge according to Don Juan and Castaneda. Man of knowledge. Then there's a student, like that person who I hope would be yourself, dear user or viewer. I don't know why I call my viewers and listeners users. At least I've always somehow slipped with calling a viewer a user, because you're a user of my content, right? I'm putting out content and you're consuming it. I hope you are, at least. Anyway, so there's a scholar, then there's a student who's a sincere, obviously, a sincere seeker of the truth is one way of putting it, right? So someone who's ardently, you know, kind of cleaving through the darkness. And it's like atheists will say, well, you know, there's so many, it's true what they say actually. You know, actually 99% of what they say is actually true, quite frankly, if not 99.98%. So please don't think I'm being facetious when I say my atheist friends. I got some great atheist friends out there. Kudos and hello to Godless Mom. Definitely one of the hotter atheists on the planet, or at least in the Twitterverse. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Courtney. I'm just being silly. I know you're married, etc., etc. And myself, I'm married too, by the way, just so you know. But here's the thing, she's a nice person, right? And that's really the only benchmark to this whole thing, right? She's a nice, principled person. She was like fighting with some Christian on there the other day, and the Christian was sending her to hell. You know, you don't believe in God, you'll go to hell. She said, at least I'll be in hell defending my principles and defending what I believe is true. Anyway, so now that we have said that, 3 kinds of people, according to our holy imams, peace be upon them all. First kind is a person of knowledge. Second is like myself and yourself, and I dare say Courtney, seekers of knowledge, like truth seekers, sincere truth seekers who are trying to figure out what's what. Now, atheists say there's millions of religions, you can't possibly search them all out. Okay, this is true, of course it's true, but that doesn't mean you stop trying to be a good person and stop trying to find some kind of truth out there, because at the end of the day, if there is a God, and there is, then he does have a plan and purpose for your life, and that's what you should be seeking, essentially. Some plan, some purpose. Now you might say, well, you know, it's very interesting. Atheists will say, well, I make my own plan, I make my own purpose, right? Or I do good just for the sake of doing good, not for a supposed God. But that's actually what Islam requires and asks as well, and that's what God wants. When you say you do good just for being good, that's the definition of doing it for God, which means there are no ulterior motives. Now, last minute, 3 kinds of people: scholar, student, and the last one, according to our imams, person who bends in any breeze, listens to any caller, you know, just goes with the flow, etc., in a bad way, and essentially is a waste of life, quote unquote. So that's a harsh note to end on. Maybe it will compel you to give me a thumbs down, because as you know, any kind of attention is better than none at all, I dare say. Take care then, be good, alright?